In this movie, I want to introduce two additional light types, namely the spotlight and the point light. Let's start with the spotlight. The spotlight is great for creating interior artificial light, for example, spotlights suspended from a ceiling or inside a theatre. Additionally, spotlights are also great for simulating car headlights or torch lights. Let's see how to create one. I'm going to move up to the menu here, choose Game Object, choose Light, and then select Spotlight. I'm going to add a spotlight to the scene and move this up into the scene, into the center. And you can see that it's been added here into the scene. The spotlight has several properties. Firstly, it has its position, the source of light emission, and that it has the cone that is extended from it. This cone is defined by two main properties. First, the range, and second, the angle. The range defines the length for which light is cast from the spotlight. We can tweak that inside the inspector, or we can click and drag on the central dot here to tweak the range of the light. In creating a spotlight, the first things that we want to change are the range and the angle. We want to define these first and then move on to specifying the color and the intensity to get the best and smoothest results. I'm going to set the range to about here. In fact, I'm going to move the light down a little bit and move the range up a little bit. Then I'm going to click on the outer dots to change the spot angle. We can also change that here using this slider in the inspector. I'm going to click and drag to expand the spot angle to something pretty wide. So I'm going to move the spot between these four cubes. Having now positioned and configured the spotlight, I'm now going to move on to the intensity. I can increase the intensity here to create a much bolder effect, and you can see the results this is having. I'm also going to apply some hard shadows to the spotlight here, and I'm also going to change the color just a little bit to something kind of bluish here. You can then click and drag to duplicate, or Command D to duplicate the spotlight to a different area, having multiple spotlights in the scene. The great thing about the spotlight is that it can simulate very specific light sources and can create interesting interior lighting. That's the great thing about the spotlight. But the disadvantage of the spotlight is that it's computationally expensive. The more of these you add to your scene, and the more of these that are having an effect on real-time illumination, the greater the impact there will be on performance. In short, for real-time lighting, you want to avoid spotlights as far as possible. I'm going to select these two spotlights and simply remove them from the scene. The next spotlight, or the next light type, beg your pardon, that I want to show you is the point light. The point light is used in many different scenarios for creating interior lighting. It's used for creating lamps, wall lamps, desk lamps, ceiling lamps, and other kinds of interior lighting that begins from a single point and casts light in all directions. To create a point light, I'm going to choose Game Object, Light, and then select Point Light from the menu to add a point light. Here is the point light, but if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see that in fact it's not just a point at a particular center casting light for as long as we can see. Instead, it is bounded by this surrounding sphere. This sphere determines the direction and the limits of this light. So in this case, we have light being cast entirely inside this sphere, and it's bounded by this surrounding area, which is the range. In this instance, the intensity of the light begins at 1 at the center and then peters out until the end. It gradiates from 1 to 0. I'm going to change the radius of the light to maybe about there. Zoom in just a little bit and bring that into the center of the scene between these cubes. Let's bring these up a little bit. I'm also going to activate shadow casting onto these sphere objects here and increase the intensity of the light. So maybe something kind of like that here, so that we have this point light casting illumination into the scene. Like the spotlight, the point light is relatively computationally expensive, but not so much as the spotlight. For this reason, most interior lighting scenarios that don't involve directional lights will resort to point lights. They can be really, really helpful. As we'll see throughout this course and throughout this module, we're going to use a combination of these different light types and see their impact on the scene. So here we've covered the three major light types, the three fundamental types. They are the directional light, the spotlight, and the point light. Make sure that you get a handle on all three of those lights because a combination of them can create very interesting visual results.